today we want to begin a section on ocean life zones. And we've been studying about the sections of the sea bottom, the sea floor. We've also been looking at some of the plant and animal life. We call the plant life phytoplankton and the animal life zooplankton. And we've also looked at tides, and a couple of things that we've noticed with the tides is the tidal flow raises the sea level on the seacoast, maybe even up to 10 feet. Worldwide, I think it's 8 feet, kind of on an average, that the tides come in, tides go out twice a day. And so we have 2 low tides, we have 2 high tides, and this really affects the seashore and the beach areas. We're going to be talking a little bit about that as we continue today. Ocean life zones, and so there's actually zones that we can see on the ocean. Let's go ahead and put today's date. It's either the 28th or it's the 30th, depending on class that you're in. And we want to first make our statement that ocean life is dependent on many factors. There's many things that determine what kind of ocean life you're going to get. One is sunlight. So maybe our number one, I'm going to put an A here, sunlight is a huge factor. Of course, the sunlight is going to determine how much plant life you have in those waters. With more plant life, that'll support more sea life, more of the animal life. So there's more sunlight on the surface. The sunlight filters down through about the first 200 feet of the ocean, and it's lit up there. So you have all of your photosynthesis going on in that upper layer. So more sunlight at the surface means that that's where you're going to have more animals that are feeding on those plants, right? Okay, there's more animals there. Another factor is temperature. The temperature of the ocean water is higher at the surface, where the sun is more intense. And so that's going to have an effect on the kind of animals that are there. It's going to have an effect even on the kinds of plants and how many plants grow there. And so there's warmer. It's warmer at the surface. And then another factor that we can see and look at is water pressure. All of you have experienced that as you've dived into a swimming pool and you went down deep and you felt like your head was going to split. Actually, it was going to collapse, right? And so the water pressure exerts a significant effect. Most animals are not able to handle high pressures, so most animals are found at the surface. And only very unusual animals are down lower. That's why as we go into the trenches, like the Marianas Trench, which is 35,000 feet down in the Pacific, the water pressure there is so intense that even our submarines can't go into those areas. You have to have certain bathyspheres that will go down that are certain design that won't crunch like a tin can, and they are able to keep a lower pressure inside. So we have water pressure, and of course most animals here are going to be at the surface. There's less water pressure. Okay, there's less pressure at the surface. So now animals can also And really, you could say the animals, let me see if I can write that a little bit easier. Animals and plants in the ocean are classified into three major groups. So we can put them in three classes. The first class is the plankton. Okay. So the plankton are very small animals that float in the surface, water. They float right on the surface or just below. Okay, so they're on or near the surface. Be sure you write that down here, okay? On or near the surface. The second big group is nekton. Nekton. And nekton are animals that swim. So fish would be considered nekton. And a third group is the benthos. Benthos would be the animals that live on the ocean floor. Now, as you think of benthos, these animals that live on the floor of the ocean, this doesn't mean that they're at the very depth of the abyss. They're down in the bottom of, with a mile of water overhead. Benthos means anywhere on the floor of the ocean. So anything like an oyster would be a benthic organism. It would be part of the benthos. A sea fan, anything that's attached, of course that's a plant, but things that are attached, coral are benthos, little animals that live inside this coral reef that they secrete. So things that are on the bottom, bottom dwellers are benthos. Okay. Now, as we think of the life zones in the ocean, there are some major life zones that we think of as we consider the ocean. The first one is called the intertidal. Intertidal. And inter means between, intertidal. And of course, tidal means the tide. So in between the tides, you have a high tide and a low tide. Here's your beach, and here's the ocean at low tide. Well, at high tide, it's going to be up here. The waves roll in. And this area is called the intertidal. So it's covered part of the time, and at other points of the time it's not covered with. So I guess you would just say that this is the part of the beach that is covered by high tides at one point in the day. Actually, 2 points in the day. So some of you have been to the beach and you've seen some of these little organisms that grow on a pier, and the water comes up and these little animals crawl out and while they're in the water, but then the water goes down as the tide goes out and they go into these little shells, and so that would be a benthos. It's stuck to the floor, but it's an intertidal life. So we have intertidal life between the low and the high tides. We also have a neritic life zone, and this would be from the low tide mark, from the low tide down to the end of the continental shelf. So we're going to draw that as we come on to this next diagram. So here I've made a diagram of the beach, and this would be your intertidal zone from the high tide down to the low tide. This zone right here is your intertidal zone. And then we've got an interesting, I'm just going to put a big I for that. Then we have from this low tide all the way down to the edge or the end of the shelf. So this is going to be about 600 feet deep, okay, and the depth there to the continental shelf. And this whole area is called the neritic life zone. So I'm going to put that in here, neritic. And then we also have a third area. And this third area, letter C, is the open ocean. Open ocean. The open ocean lies above the continental slope or on the abyssal plain. So if this is the slope, this is the continental slope that goes down to the abyss, okay? It hits the rise, and then there's the abyss, okay? So this whole area from this point, where the slope is just above the slope, all the way out into the ocean, the open ocean, that is this zone. And sort of this zone is going to include all the abyssal plains of the ocean. So this is going to be open water. This is going to really be water that averages worldwide about a depth of a mile. So an average of 1 mile deep water. So this abyssal area that has got an average depth of 1 mile deep, that is going to be this open ocean life zone. Now the open ocean life zone can itself be divided a little bit. You can into really 3 zones. And so I'm going to try to write all 3 of them down here. The first one, the Bathel zone. The Bathel zone begins at the continental slope down to about 2,000 meters. Okay, so I'm going to put down here the continental slope down to 2,000 meters. Okay, that's pretty deep. That is quite deep. The second zone in the open ocean is just slightly deeper. This covers the large, flat abyssal plains of the ocean. So this is called the abyssal zone. And the abyssal zone in the open ocean is really the large, flat abyssal plain. Okay, and so this is very, very, very deep water, lots of pressure, lots of darkness there. The third one is the Hadal life zone in the open ocean. And the Hadal zone is in the deep ocean trenches. So these would be animals and plants that can be characterized down there in those deep trenches. Now, you got to remember that's very high pressure. The water is going to have a different oxygen content. What do you suppose? Do you think under lots of pressure, pressing down on the water, that it would hold more oxygen or less oxygen? Okay, think that one through a little bit. And what do you think about the temperature? Water that has a big, heavy pressure over it, would it be colder or warmer water? What allows water to get warm? Remember, molecules of water are moving faster. So if you're under a lot of pressure, is it going to be warmer or colder water? Okay, so think about that a little bit. Now, I've sent home with you an Ocean Life Zones worksheet, and it shows the different depths. It shows these zones and the limits. It's a real good summary on the top of that sheet. So I'd like you to learn that top of the worksheet. So I'm going to write that in here. Learn this chart on the top of the ocean life zones. And then you're going to answer some questions about it. Now, I've also sent home a sheet that is got the answers. And so, and I've sent, and we call that a key. You know, anytime you have an answer sheet, it's called a key. So don't use that key until you check your paper, okay? So parents, make sure that your student works on the worksheet without using that key. So we're going to do the first two answers real quick here, and might not be super quick, but let's look at this worksheet and let's look at question number 1. It says, of course, just above that you have the types of marine life. You have plankton, nekton, and benthos, which we've talked about. The benthos meaning those things that are on the surface of the bottom. So it could be coral, we mentioned. We talked about lobsters, or we didn't talk about lobsters. We said, what did we say? Oysters, clams. But notice the lobster crawling around dwells on the bottom, so snails dwell on the bottom. And for plants, we've got seaweed that grows down there that's attached. And of course, little corals and little sponges, which are animals, and they're kind of building a colony. So let's take a look at number 1. Name the zone where marine life sometimes lives out of water. Now notice that it says sometimes lives out of water. So marine life is going to be partially out of the water. Okay, what would that be? And of course the answer is the intertidal. And why? Now you need to be writing a nice complete sentence here. So why is the intertidal the zone where part of the time the life there is out of the water? And you should answer what? Let me give you a couple moments to go ahead and answer. Go ahead and take your pencil. By the way, you can use pencil on the worksheets. It's like a lab in a way. We would be, if we were in class, we would be looking at some starfish, and we had some other animals, clams and other animals that we were going to take a look at. But use pencil. Okay, so your answer, what's going on there? Yeah, you should have something to do with the fact that tides come in and out, and they cover the intertidal area with water twice a day, and then the area is, this intertidal area is not covered with water when it's at low tide. So you'll see these little pools of water on the beach. A lot of you guys have seen these little, they call them intertidal pools, and little animals, some of the nekton, these little fish, and sometimes other animals are caught in the pool. So the tide goes out and they're kind of caught. They're stranded in these little pools of water. It's always interesting to see what you see there. We were in Alaska with my mother about 5 years ago, and we were on a beach, and the intertidal pools were there. The tide was out, so you could see. And lo and behold, an octopus was in one of these little pools, and you could see the octopus jump out and move to another pool. So the octopus, man, I couldn't believe how fast that little octopus went. I think the body, kind of the lobe on the octopus, was about the size of a softball. So you could see it real clearly, and that was interesting because an octopus crawls around on the bottom, so it would be a what? Yeah, there you go. It's kind of a benthos, isn't it? It can swim around, but usually it's hugging a rock or grabbing a clamshell and forcing it open. So number one, you would answer the intertidal has areas that are underwater part of the time, as the tide goes in, as the tide goes out. Number two, which zone has the coldest water? And then why? Okay, so your answer would be what? Probably the zone that's farthest from the warmest water, which would be the deep, deep zone. And it would be the Hadal, right? The Hadal zone. And why? Well, it's farthest from the sun's rays. What could make, though, the Hadal zone have some warmer water in it? Yeah, if there was a volcanic fissure there, or there was some volcanic activity or hot spring type of activity, yeah, that would be definitely a game changer there. It would heat the water up. But under normal circumstances, we have that Hadal zone is the coldest. It's deepest. The water is under a lot of pressure. That's going to mean that the molecules, are not going to be moving around as much. There's pressure on them. So all of those factors are going to give you pretty cold water. Okay, so I want you guys to go through 3 through 10, and then, only then, I want you to look at the key and make changes and add to your answers. Okay, so you are free, parents, to let your student use that key, but to make their answer a little bit better, only though after they've already worked on it. So don't let them have it until they finish all the questions on their own. Then they can add to it. Do you count them as wrong? No, you're not grading it. You are in a sense, you're looking at it and you're making corrections, but it's not getting an official grade. Okay, so what should you do with the homework sheet after you finish it? Yes, it goes into the homework folder, and we're going to check it. We're going to make sure that you've done it as we collect those papers. All right, we're going to move on to our next tape.